The controversy takes place in Hawaii, specifically in Mauna Kea Mountain, which according to the measurements from base to summit is considered the largest mountain in the world. The main actors involved are TMT scientists, since they are planning to build a 30-meter telescope in the region. The project is considered to be executed mainly by China, India, the USA, Japan, and Canada, with an inversion estimated of $1 billion. This geographical spot holds a special interest, since it offers an incredible view that can lead to many discoveries, space exploration, and improvement and involvement of the astronomy field. Nevertheless, the inhabitants of the place, especially Native Hawaiians, have shown a lot of discomforts and have held a series of protests and demonstrations for the choosing of this specific area for the project development of TMT, especially in a matter of the fact that there are already 13 telescopes atop Mauna Kea, but the gigantic telescope is too much and enters their culture. The astronomical project of TMT gave the inhabitants of the region a purpose, a responsibility to fight for their heritage and identity. It was a starting point for the union of the Native Hawaiians of the region, manifested by different Pacific protests even in times of COVID-19, in order to cancel the construction. These protests in recent years have had a giant impact all around the world, showing why Mauna Kea represents a very important part of the identity of the people living there, and also showing the spiritual connection that the mountain represents that is linked to the Native Hawaiians' creation history. People in Hawaii are sick of all the broken promises, and the actors in charge of the constructions of all the telescopes have abused their territory by trespassing what is sacred to them, their mountains, and they refuse that they are touched by science. Moreover, the fact that the land where all these telescopes were built is filled with past generation tombs. When the construction started, they were discovered the burials of great chiefs. For Hawaiians, those tombs are legacies that can be taken back, because the construction managers disappeared them. In July 2019, 300 protesters gathered in the encouragement of the TMT plan outside the Hawaiian state capital in Honolulu. However, nowadays, Mauna Kea is still closed and the future of TMT is unknown.
When the rooting of cultural heritage happens, it can give birth to a rupture in people's identity. The anger, the confusion, the yearning can mold the way of living and mold the path in which the people have learned how to live with it and transmit it to the coming generations. Identity is formed by different aspects, but culture is one of the most important ones. Identity is shaped by traditions, history, the place where people live in, etc. When there is artwork taken away from the culture and displayed in another country, it is like taking away a part of those people. There are cultures that know their history and traditions that include artifacts that they have never seen because it was looted, and many people around the world go and admire these pieces in museums. Doesn't this sound wrong?
As we saw, in this situation cultural identity is affected, and stopping the construction of the 30-meter telescope or removing some of the 13 that are already atop Mauna Kea is not enough. This conflict goes beyond that. People have been suffering marginalization and unjust practices that do not only affect their culture, but also their way of living, identity, and their language. Astronomers only consider their point of view without realizing all the damage they have been causing to Native Hawaiians. Their sacred place has been violated. The aesthetics are not the same. The natural and magnificent view with warm colors from the top, the cold breeze, the peaceful sounds of the wind, animals, and lake that gave the place a sense of mysticity, peace, power, connection, respect, and value have changed. With the construction of the telescopes, the sacred place is almost destroyed. Tombs have been torn down and Hawaiians can't practice rituals. This complex situation needs to be solved from the root and not just removing or stopping this construction, because more could come. It has effects on the Native Hawaiians as they are the main affected, on the government because they regulate, authorities because they help stop the protests, and astronomers that are the one benefited. Action is in hand of all, but the main in charge are Hawaiian institutions that protect culture and nature, such as OHA, Office of Hawaiian Affairs, and the government. They need to understand and act in a way that global cultural heritage, the mountain, culture, and people are at the center.
The 30-meter telescope on Mauna Kea is the best instrument to answer one of humanity's biggest questions. Is there life outside of Earth?
Can cultural appropriation be observed? when assets are moved to another place. An asset belonging to a current culture now instead inserted in another. Does it generate cultural practices? In what way? Yes and no. If the asset is acquired through the correct means, it will teach and educate the natives of its new home about the outside world, causing multicultural practices and an evolution of the local culture. If it's acquired by the wrong means, like looting, it is cultural appropriation and can cause negative effects in the local population of the new home, since most of the time, the locals give it an incorrect meaning, causing misinformation and stereotypes.
A solution to this conflicts could be the chance between parties to open an intercultural dialogue in which both sides understand the interest and points of view from each party and respect the fine lines that can attack the other, that can denigrate rights or culture. Once the arguments have been exposed, the decision of doing the right thing must be laid on the table and discussed. The best scenario for this is for all of the parts to be beneficiated, but all conflicts are different and many aspects must be taken into account, such as discrimination, justice, having a guarantee for rights to be respected, etc.
Also, in regard to the solutions, Native Hawaiian people of Mauna Kea could not only be the first ones to adopt a cultural framework that gives them the authority to decide on their sacred land, they also could be the first ones to demonstrate the whole world that nature should always be considered part of our heritage and of the most valuable things that we hold as an species, even before some parts of culture, like in this case, astronomical research.
Global cultural heritage is much more complex than we think. It involves many hazards, vulnerable groups, and risks that we need to identify in order to act. We need to understand all the perspectives, background, history, aesthetics, and cultural features. We should not forget where we came from and that we live in a diverse world where every human has the same value, and that our identity is formed from different factors that we need to analyze, including tangible and intangible cultural heritage. We are one world and we need to protect what makes us unique. Because we are the identity, culture, and heritage, what's left?
There's no telling what the fight ahead looks like for the movement other than that it will be difficult. Finally, we can observe that resilience is a key role in the different approaches and substantial activity in the area that protesters have made in order to stop the different projects that aim toward the area between Mauna Kea, Mauna Loa, and Hualai volcanic mountains, principally because of how they hold sensitive environments and culturally significant landscapes. Resilience needs to hold an important position for those in the movement, bounded by a firm belief that it resides in advocating for the preservation of Mauna Kea.
We can conclude that the Mauna Kea case is being threatened by the construction of the telescope, but it's not just about the telescope, it's about how culture is being threatened, how science has lost humanity within the Hawaiian people, and we can think about a solution that would be the chance to have an open dialogue between the two parties to find a good solution and the better one for both of them.
With globalization, we are heading to unprecedented times, where borders are just political rubbish, creating new challenges and advantages. One of the challenges is to not to lose one's culture and values with increased interaction between cultures. That's why we should actively protect the core parts of our culture, because it is inevitable that some parts of other cultures are going to phase into ours, as our culture is going to change theirs. We should also create a cultural vault, similar to the seed vault at the North Pole, to protect our cultural heritage in case of calamity.